This is ridiculous. Now we're really starting to go in outer space here with some of this Cavs news when it comes to roster shakeups, roster moves as we prepare for the 25-26 season. It's starting to get crazy, and I thought we'd have a fun day kind of talking about why. Welcome to another episode of Cavs Digest, everybody. I'm your host, Darayus Sethna. Thanks so much for joining me here on today's video. We are in August, the dog days of summer, certainly the dog days of the NBA offseason as well. So make sure, like I said, before we get into this one, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the Cavs Digest YouTube channel. I've been seeing a lot of comments in our videos recently, so really appreciate the engagement, the interaction. Let's keep that up. Make sure you're subscribing to the channel and liking these videos. So let's get into it because, like I said, it's the dog days of summer with the Cavs. There's not really a whole lot of news going on, but I was doing some digging and found this article. This is a really interesting article. It's on SI.com, and it's actually really interesting because, as you can see on the title there, you're ranking the Cavs' top 5 trade assets. So if the Cavs were to make a big swing, here would be the top trade assets. Now, I'm thinking, and I've been adamant about this, there is no reason for the Cleveland Cavaliers to be making any moves, especially at this point in the offseason. You only have, if you think about it, only 2 months till the regular season begins, only about a month and a half till training camp. So just bringing someone in right now probably doesn't make the biggest sense, especially when you know that you have these guys, your core 4, already locked in. That nucleus is set. We've even heard general manager Koby Altman talk about it multiple times. This is a team that is in that championship space. They want to continue living in that championship space, and you don't change anything if that's the case. If you know that you're right there, you can get over that hump, then no need to make significant changes. I've been kind of beating that drum for about a month now since I've been on the channel. And that's why, in this case, it's kind of a good thing that we haven't had any crazy news about the Cavs recently, especially when it comes to transactions and things like that. So let's get into it right away, talking about specifically what this article mentioned, who would be the top trade assets for the Cleveland Cavaliers. And it's pretty easy to say, again, like, Darius, this is silly. The Cavs aren't going to trade any of these guys. But let's look at it from a different perspective as well. What is it about these guys that makes them so valuable, and why other teams would want them via a trade if that opportunity were to come? So let's start with our number 5, who was mentioned in this article. That's DeAndre Hunter. And, if there's anybody who I think I've advocated for the most since I've been on the show here, it's been DeAndre Hunter. Jack of all trades type guy. The first thing that comes to mind when I think about him is Swiss Army knife. You can put him in any position, ball handler, catch and shoot, facilitator, and he can thrive in pretty much all of those. I mean, he's not, a prototypical point guard, but he's, like I said, he's got some ball handling skills. He really is a guy who you can just plug into that offense, and he can do whatever you need him to do. And looking at those bottom 2 categories there, it's the efficiency that really hits it home for me. The 47% from the field overall, very efficient. And then 41%, almost 41% from three-point land. Like I said, if you want to put him in that catch and shoot role, he has the ability to do that. But then if you also want him to just take some other shots, take some mid-range, off the dribble, things like that, he's pretty lethal at those as well, shooting 47% from the field. Now we get into number 4 mentioned on this list of valuable trade assets for the Cavs, and that's a fan favorite, Jarrett Allen. And here's the really interesting aspect about Allen as well. He's another guy who I don't think gets enough credit for someone who can be like a DeAndre Hunter. You can just plug him into the offense and he'll do his job. An elite shot blocker, right? An elite rebounder. He's not going to get you 20, 25 points a game. That's not his game. And also, it's not the 1990s anymore. NBA teams aren't basing their offenses out of their big man. And I think Jarrett Allen is really the perfect big man who can run the floor in the modern NBA. He's long. He can block shots. And then there's that field goal. He's always one of the league leaders in field goal percentages year in and year out. And that's because he knows his role. He knows he needs to be at the basket, but then also you know that he's lanky enough that if for some reason he's switched on to a guard or maybe a more shifty offensive player, he can stay with that player pretty well on the defensive end of the floor. And then you look at it, only 27 years old. So age is an important factor here as well. He's a center who is still relatively young for considering NBA years on him. So he certainly would have a lot of value for a lot of teams, especially ones who are looking for a center and a young center at that. Now we go into where it gets a little crazy here, where it gets a little bit ridiculous, like I mentioned earlier in the video. Number 3 on this list, talked about him earlier this week, that is Darius Garland. And here's a really interesting stat about Darius Garland. So when he was on the floor, the Cavs scored 125.2 points per 100 possessions. So I did the math, and that's at least 1.25 points per possession. Now you're like, Darayus, one basket is 2 points. That's less than 2. Why does that even matter? Well, if you think about it, you're getting at least a point when Darius Garland's on the floor per every offensive possession. And during the course of a 48-minute, 4-quarter game, that's going to add up. And that's why the Cavs had one of the most lethal offenses in the entire NBA last year. Now, look, I don't see any scenario why the Cavs would trade Darius Garland. There were a lot of rumors early in the offseason, especially after his poor performance against Indiana. But this is someone who the Cavs are locked into. This is a point guard who is a game changer, and he's not someone that you're just going to want to give up for nothing as well, right? So there are teams chomping at the bit for a player like Darius Garland, his ability to create, to score, his efficiency at times. Now, he can dribble a lot. There are times where he's dribbled, many seconds into the shot clock, but I think there's room for growth, and I think his ability to mesh with the number 2 guy on this list has really made him a very valuable asset and possibly trade asset. Who knows? But he was number 3 on the list, and I mentioned who number 2 was, and that is Donovan Mitchell, the Spider. Right now, look again. The Cavs just re-signed Donovan Mitchell last summer, so I don't see why they would trade him. But here's a really interesting stat about Donovan Mitchell. He finished 4th in points per game in the 2025 playoffs. 4th. There were only 3 players who averaged more points than Donovan Mitchell in the 2025 postseason. It was Giannis Antetokounmpo, Luka Doncic, and the ultimate NBA Finals MVP, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Those were the only 3. And that was a little bit, that raised my eyebrows a little bit because I was like, wow, Donovan Mitchell had a shorter postseason, certainly than Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, but he was still proving that he is an elite scorer of the basketball. And I think there are so many other ways that Donovan Mitchell improved this past season with his leadership, his ability to pass. So many of those intangible skills as well really showed that he is the leader of this team. So there are so many skills and just intangibles and traits about Donovan Mitchell, the basketball player and the person, that make him such a valuable trade asset. But again, there's just like Darius Garland, there is no reason whatsoever why you'd want to give Donovan Mitchell up. And here's the other caveat as well. He's only 28 years old. We think Donovan Mitchell's been in the league forever. He's only 28, so he's still got at least 7-8 years left of his prime, and so he is certainly going to be a huge factor for Cleveland for years to come. But on the other end, that does make him a very valuable trade asset. And then number 1, you probably guessed it, is the reigning Defensive Player of the Year, Evan Mobley. Listen to this stat line. 18.5 points per game, 9 rebounds per game, and here's the big one, 37% from three-point range this year. Evan Mobley was actually a problem from 3 this past year, which was not the case in the years leading up to this one, right? Evan Mobley truly is the future of the Cleveland Cavaliers. He is the guy who I believe will at some point, win the most valuable player award. He has future MVP written all over him. I mean, you look at the skills, the they're endless, right? He can go to the basket. Now he can shoot. He's a solid free throw shooter. And there's even more room for growth, right? Even Donovan Mitchell went up to head coach Kenny Atkinson last offseason and said, we need to make Evan Mobley the focal point of the offense. I'm paraphrasing that, of course. But they did that, and look what happened. Defensive Player of the Year. I think MVP is in the writings, is in the stars for Evan Mobley. He is truly what makes the Cleveland Cavaliers go. He is that future piece for the Cleveland Cavaliers that they can rely on for the next decade and possibly even beyond. So that makes him, right, incredibly valuable and an incredibly valuable trade asset. That's what so many of these teams are looking for. That a player now in the NBA has to do so many different things: score, shoot, ball handling. Evan Mobley has all of those skills. He has worked on all those skills. But the scary thing is that there's still room to grow. Like I said, he has future MVP written all over him. But those were the top 5 trade assets for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Like I said, something a little fun to talk about here this summer as well. Again, I would be shocked if any of those 5 players are not on the Cleveland Cavaliers roster moving forward, especially for the upcoming season. But what are your thoughts on this Cavs roster? Who are some other players maybe that I didn't mention or this article didn't mention who are incredibly valuable to the Cavs? Like I said, this is a very deep roster, so there are a lot of names to choose from, and I want to hear what you have to say as well. So make sure, like I said, like this video, subscribe to the Cavs Digest YouTube channel. We'll be back with more videos very shortly, and until then, I'll see you soon. Thanks so much, everybody. Take care.